God calls us to awaken him, how will he find us when he comes?
Awake and ready.
And when he asks us to dedicate ourselves ever more perfectly to him, how will he find us?
Awake and ready.
Let's pray together. Heavenly Father,
Heavenly Father,
Divine Mother,
Divine Mother,
Friend, beloved God,
Friend, beloved God,
Great Masters,
Great Masters,
Jesus Christ,
Jesus Christ,
Babaji Krishna,
Babaji Krishna,
Lahiri Mahashaya,
Lahiri Mahashaya,
Swami Shri Yukteswar,
Swami Shri Yukteswar,
Paramahansa Yogananda,
Paramahansa Yogananda,
Saints of all religions,
Saints of all religions,
we humbly bow to you all.
we humbly bow to you all.
Divine Mother,
Divine Mother,
bless our action,
bless our action,
that it be in tune with thy will.
let it be in tune with thy will.
Let our thoughts reflect thy wisdom.
And let our thoughts reflect thy wisdom.
Let our souls shine with thy joy.
And let
Our
our
souls shine with thy joy.
We are thine, Mother.
We are
Thy
thine.
Mother,
Be thou ever ours.
Be thou
ever ours.
Om.
Om.
Peace.
Peace.
Amen. You can have a seat. And we'll start with some music.
To Dublin town one day came a monk wise and grey. Good people come, he cried, give ear. No matter your state, how rich or how great, in God's eyes it's nothing at all. The riches you'd gain with struggle and strain are nothing, oh nothing at all. Urchin brightly thought, if all gain is but naught, and if the good Lord eats it not, what harm would I make by lifting that cake? Why none, that cake's nothing at all. Oh sure, and it's sweet, and soft, and a treat, sure too, but it's nothing at all. He spied the cake itself on a bakery shelf, so angel-like he smiled and drew near. As trout swallowed bait, he lifted that plate and ran like a two-legged deer. Yes, off he did run like shot from a gun, or wind, or a two-legged deer. The baker's wife then sped, took a stick to his head, and scolded well and angrily. Oh, ouch, the boy cried, that wicked monk lied. All gain, he said's nothing at all. Take that, she replied, if gain is your guide, this pain too is nothing at all.
Continue to meditate with your consciousness uplifted at the point between the eyebrows. And as I read to you from Affirmations for Self-Healing on our quality of the week, which is service. Service is ennobling. It is a way of offering our human littleness into the great reality that is God. Service should not be given with the thought that one is serving people merely. It should be given with an inward consciousness to the Lord who resides in all creatures. When we serve others in this spirit, we find our own spirits become freed from egotism. Peace then fills us in the realization that there isn't anyone with whom we need compete. What joy to think that we belong to God. Let's affirm together as Yogananda taught, first in a strong voice out loud, and then we'll do it progressively softer and then mentally. I will serve God through others.
I will serve God through others.
And by my service to Him,
And by my service to Him,
release the hold the ego has on me.
release the hold the ego has on me.
I am free in God.
I am free in God.
In God I am free.
In God I am free.
A little softer. I will serve God through others.
And I will serve God through others.
And by my service to Him,
And by my service to Him,
release the hold the ego has on me.
release the hold the ego has on me.
I am free in God.
I am free in God.
In God I am free.
In God I am free.
Now in a whisper, I will serve God through others. And by my service to Him, release the hold the ego has on me. I am free in God. In God I am free. Now mentally, I will serve God through others. And by my service to Him, release the hold the ego has on me. I am free in God. In God, I am free. Now mentally, one last time, this time let's lift it to the superconscious seat, broadcasting it from the point between the eyebrows, with deep enthusiasm, devotion, and concentration. I will serve God through others. And by my service to Him, release the hold the ego has on me. I am free in God. In God, I am free. Pray silently with me. All that I do, Lord, I do for love of Thee. Accept the flowers of my service to Thee as I place them on Thy altar of omnipresence. Oh, peace.
Good morning, friends.
Good morning.
Wonderful to see you all. Welcome to old friends and new friends, and our friends joining online. My name is Narayan. This is my wife, Dharmadevi. Our joy to share with you our Sunday satsang. And every week we share from Rays of the One Light. These are parallel passages from the Bible and the Bhagavad Gita. And this week is the secret of right action. Truth is one and eternal. Realize oneness with it and your deathless self within. The following commentary is based on the teachings of Paramahansa Yogananda. One of the most famous stories in the Gospels is that of Martha and Mary. Jesus, visiting the home of Martha, was teaching while her sister Mary sat at his feet absorbing his divine love and wisdom. Martha, meanwhile, busied herself with serving her guests and was upset with Mary for not helping her. "Lord," she cried, "doesn't it matter to you that my sister has left me to do all this serving alone? Please ask her to help me." "Martha, Martha," Jesus answered, "thou art careful and troubled about many things. But one thing is needful, and Mary hath chosen that good part, which shall not be taken away from her." This story is classic, for Martha's complaint is very understandable and not on the surface of it spiritually wrong. Jesus may well have told Mary to get up and help her. We don't really know that he didn't, considerate as he always was of others' needs. But the teaching here doesn't concern the obvious dilemma of devotees to work for God or to spend all one's time in prayer. It concerns, rather, the attitude of the mind. Jesus didn't tell Martha, "Martha, you are doing too much." He told her, rather, "You are letting your work affect your inner peace." That was the contrast. Not work versus contemplation, but restless preoccupation versus peaceful absorption under all circumstances. As it says in the Bhagavad Gita, in the 2nd chapter, Actions performed under the influence of desire are greatly inferior to those which are guided by wisdom. Happiness eludes people when they act from self-interest. Seek shelter, therefore, in the equanimity of wisdom. Thus, through Holy Scripture, God has spoken to mankind. Om, Om,
Good morning from me, and happy Mother's Day. I sometimes have a hard time with some of the holidays we have, like Mother's Day, because I feel like, in a sense, we're all mothers to varying degrees. I am a mother to our little doggy collie, and I take my job very seriously. Not a mother to any earthly children, but I'm sure you can all relate to taking on that responsibility, whether it's to other people in your life or creatures, plants, whatever it may be. I'd like to start with a reading from Whispers from Eternity, Yogananda's book of prayer demands. And this is, "Thou didst reveal thy silver rays of speaking silence. Divine Mother, I heard thy voice in the speaking fragrance of the rose. I heard thy voice in the lisping whispers of my devotion. I heard thy voice beneath the din of my noisiest thoughts. It was thy love which spoke through the voice of friendship. I touched thy tenderness in the softness of the lily. O Divine Mother, break through the dawn and show thy face of light. Break through the sun and show thy face of power. Break through the night and show thy mooned face. Break through my thoughts and show thy face of wisdom. Break through my feelings and show thy face of love. Break through my pride and show thy face of humbleness. Break through my wisdom and show thy face of perfection. As I called to thee in the wilderness of my loneliness, thou didst burst through the dawn to greet me with thy joy. Thou didst emerge from the molten door of the sun to invigorate me through the pores of my life. Thou didst tear away the night of my ignorance to reveal thy silver rays of speaking silence." So many of you know that last week we had the great honor and privilege to host Nayaswami Jyotishan for 10 days. They were here in LA and they taught at the Yogananda Fest and many other different events, and they had many meetings and greetings with people, and so we were there hosting them at our house and driving them around, and what a blessing. And also, you know, there's a lot that goes into even a weekend, but 10 days of, you know, schedules, and my brain just kind of like is constantly trying to wrap itself around all the, okay, they've got this one, we've got to get them back by then, you know, so it's like the whole time. And so I had this dream. It was probably like the day before they left. And in the dream, Narayan and I were giving a Kriya ceremony with Jyotishan Devi, which I can't think of any action that would be more sacred in my mind and in my heart to be part of a Kriya initiation with Jyotishan Devi. And so one would think I would be like Mary, absorbed at the feet, soaking in these blessings. But in the dream, I was off in this little room on my own, trying to fix it up perfectly. Why? I have no idea. But there was this big, beautiful flower arrangement, probably from the big, beautiful flower arrangement we had at Yogananda Fest. And I'm looking at it, I'm like, okay, we just got to get this flower arrangement right and set up in the room so the room is perfect. And this guy who's supposed to be like a professional flower arranger, I'm sure a florist, and he came in and he starts pulling everything out. And I'm thinking, okay, he's got it under control. I'll go about my other busy business. And I look back, and the flower arrangement is this little nothing. I mean, it's like, imagine a rose and a little sprig of, it's just this little, like a Charlie Brown Christmas tree. And I'm like, what are you doing? Oh my God, what have you done to the flower arrangement? This is for the Kriya, and blah, blah. Meanwhile, I look out, and Jyotish, Devi, Narayan are sitting up on this beautifully designed altar. They're in bliss, just blessing people for the Kriya. And I'm going, I gotta get this done so I can get out there. Looking back, I'm like, what was I thinking? But, it's a dream. So there I was, busying myself. Finally, I come out, and I'm like, okay, I just have to get out here for the tail end of the blessing. And I come out, and I see people coming back to their seats from the Kriya, and they're jumping up and down. Yay! We got Kriya! And they're giving each other high fives. And I'm thinking to myself, what in the world is going on here? This is not how people should act during a Kriya initiation. And I have this very critical thought going on. And I'm like, okay, fine. I'm just gonna go up and take my seat and start blessing. So I go up and I sit down, and what happens? Somebody's phone goes off. And my mind is like, I can't believe somebody left their phone on during a Kriya. And then I see Jyotish, who's sitting next to me, goes, whoop. And he looks at oopsie. And I'm like, oh. Right when the light bulb went off in my head in the dream, I woke up. And I realized when Narayan told me what the topic was for this week, I was like, yeah, I'm doing service this week. Because it was just so clear to me in that moment how we get ourselves so wrapped up in the details, so wrapped up in the perfecting of this physical world, which is completely impossible. We cannot do it, but we try nonetheless. And some of us, to varying degrees, try harder than others to perfect our outer world. But I told this dream to Devi as we were driving to service, and she was very sweet. She was like, oh, it's just because you have so many details. I was like, no, Devi, this is an issue for me. I have to work on letting go of control. And what I realized, have you ever felt like stiffness in your shoulders? You see lots of nods. Do you feel maybe that you're carrying the weight of the world on your shoulders? Yeah, I can relate. And guess who put the weight of the world on your shoulders? Individually, we can point to ourselves. We do it. We don't have to have the weight of the world on our shoulders. We place it there knowingly, sometimes somewhat unknowingly, but we always have the option to take it off. It doesn't mean we put it on someone else. We can take it off, and we can put it on Divine Mother's shoulders and say, Divine Mother, it's your job to take care of the world. I have the duties you've given me to do. I'll do them to the best of my ability, but that's all I can do. I can do my best. So, the point of my dream, I would say, really was to be present. Here was this amazing event happening, if you even want to call it an event, and I was elsewhere. I was not present. If I had said, what's more important, this little room or what's happening, I would have dropped what was happening in the little room and gone and been present. It's also, of course, this reading is about right attitude. The critical thought that started with the florist saying he's not doing his job right, then they're not receiving the Kriya in the way they should, then who has their cell phone going off. All of it was the attitudes of the mind. And if we can learn to be present, it means also acceptance, right? Because we're accepting the world and people and ourselves as it and we all are. It doesn't mean that we aren't working towards something. It means that we're grounded in the reality of what is. And from where is, then we can take the next true step of, now how can I get better? How can I work on myself? But if we don't have the foundation of where am I, we have nothing to move forward from, because we don't even really know who we are at that point. We're just, oh no, everything's fine, or everything's terrible, or whatever it is. We're just stuck in this roller coaster of life. And once we can accept and truly understand who we are in this world and in the world beyond, because ultimately we are far greater than we can ever imagine. We're bliss incarnate, but we're bliss incarnate with layers of all the personality and self-definitions we've put on ourselves. So we can say, no, I'm one with God, but yes, I am one with God, and I have this reality of these self-definitions, of this karma, of my attachments to deal with right now. And how am I going to do that? So firmly planted and then ready for action, ready to take on what God has given us. God has no problem giving us exactly what we need to take that next step. If you ever find yourself going, what are my tests? What am I supposed to be working on? Just go, I don't need to ask that question, because God knows perfectly well. It's what's being presented to you in your daily life. Everything that comes to you is for your growth, for learning the lessons that we have to learn in this life. And once we go, oh, that's for me, and we step up and we go, okay, let me see what's here for me to understand and to progress through, then we can take the next step. But it's always what happens, or what tends to happen, is we go, okay, and wait, that one's not for me. That was for him. He needs that lesson, not me. And we don't see our part in the big picture of, no, everything that comes to me is for me to grow through my karma, for me to understand something. So, I love the story of Martha and Mary, and just how Jesus is, Martha, Martha. Just can see him doing a little, what are you thinking? But I wanted to share a contrasting story of when we can have wrong attitude, even when we're playing the part of beloved Mary, who's just there with her guru. Very close to Swami Kriyananda's passing, I went to India to visit him. I had the desire to see him, and I had a feeling he might not be, I guess my soul probably knew, because on the surface I knew nothing, but I knew that I wanted to see him, and he was going to be traveling around India. So I went and visited him, and while I was there, it was just so blissful to be in his presence and to get to kind of be part of this entourage with nothing really to do except to just be, to be present. And so I was nearing the end of my 2-week visit there, and I said, Swami, can I just travel around with you for this next 3 months? And I had talked to Narayan, and Narayan's like, yeah, do it. You know, you won't have that opportunity again. There was this shift in Ananda, LA, and all that. So I had this window, and he said, what are you still doing here? Not with any kind of meanness, though the ego would feel it was mean. He said, they need you in LA. And, you know, so again, it comes back to our consciousness. Are we just, you know, that in that moment, for me to travel around and just, you know, in a sense, be a lazy bum with Swami Kriyananda would have been selfish. It would have been, let me take in his vibrations and for me. And so he refocused my energy and sent me back. And actually it was 3 months later that he left the body, which I thought was pretty amazing. But, you know, so it's not that we shirk our duties, right? Because if we're doing our duties, maybe we're too busy. Yogananda was running one time to a meeting, I think, and one of the disciples said, oh, don't run, master. You don't have to be worried or be nervous or be, what did she say?
Yeah, don't run, don't be nervous.
Don't be nervous. He said, you're going to have to help me with this.
He said to not run when one has to is to be lazy.
Yeah, so it was, we have to act, but it's all about our consciousness, right? So are we busy just for the sake of being busy? Maybe a lot of people can relate to that. I know I can. That we get into a rhythm, right? We have a certain momentum, and then there's nothing left to do, and we just keep doing this because there's got to be something else to do. But really, we are given those moments to pause, to be, to come back inside, to recenter. Swami would just seem like not human by the way that he would get things done, at the activities he would do. He would write a book, in like a 600-page book in 6 weeks, and he would be traveling all around the world doing talks and lectures and just non-stop, and just would make you dizzy being around him for like 5 minutes. It was like, wow, just so much energy. And then he would go and take a month of seclusion. He was in tune with his nature and how God expressed himself or herself through his being. And he knew he needed a certain rhythm of strong, intense activity, and then a long period to recenter and get back, you know, into that deep seat of his soul, right? And a lot of us would see Swami's intense activity, and we would try to keep up with Swami. Wait, I'm coming, Swami, wait, you know, and we would run ourselves ragged. And then he would go off for a month to recharge, and we're left here going, oh God, what's next? We gotta keep going. And so there wasn't a balance, and he said, you have to tune into your nature and what will allow you to be sustainable. It's a long distance run. It's a marathon, the spiritual path. It's not for just sprinting and then collapsing. We have to find our rhythm and get into that flow where we feel enough in tune with the divine grace. Because if we just think, I'm going to do it at my rhythm, there's not an opportunity for divine grace to say, you need help and I will give it to you. Because God supports his devotees. He supports all of us. And when we say, I'm going to take on a little more than I can chew here, there's the divine grace to see us through. If we just say, well, I'm going, but it feels a little bit too fast, I'm just going to slow it down. Slow it down. Then we just kind of miss that wave. Have you ever body surfed? And like there's that moment where you're like, you gotta paddle really fast and then the wave takes you, right? But you have to work hard. You have an initial burst that gets you into the wave. I'm sure it's like that for surfing. Never surfed, but you've got to get ahead of the wave slightly to where it can take you on. But you know, so often we say, oh, not that one, and we dunk back down under the wave so that it passes over and doesn't clobber us. But, and same is true if you go too fast and then the wave crashes down on top of you, and that doesn't feel good either. So we have to find the right rhythm where we're gonna crash and burn. It's the nature of the spiritual path to find our edge, because I mean, unless somebody is just ultra in tune with their nature, then they can just go to that perfect point of edge where the grace comes. But it takes experimenting. It takes really tuning in and being honest. Is this sustainable for me? Is it not? Do I need to push myself a little bit more? Do I need to pull back a little bit? But just working with your nature and also working with the flow of divine grace and having the attitude, most importantly, of nishkam karma, action without desire for the fruits of action. And when we are able to do our service without thought of self, of little self, and only with thought of big self, we start to really, it opens up and we go, oh, that's how Swami was able to do all that he did. Wow, that's how Master was able to get so much accomplished, because he wasn't doing it. He had forgotten the little self and the little bundle of self-definitions that say, no, 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 you can't possibly do that. It's way too much. You're going to just, you go kaplat. But so selfless service, nishkam karma, seeing God as the doer. One other thing I wanted to offer as how we can tune into being in the present moment and forgetting the self, really, is to go on a worry fast. Yogananda called them. He said, go on a worry fast and say to yourself, if you have that tendency, which most of us in one way or another do have the tendency to be ruminating on one thing or another, when you start that worrying, go, no. From this period of time, give yourself an hour. From here until here, I will not worry. I'll let go of all the worries and let God worry for me. God doesn't need to worry, so it's just sort of like tossing it over. And then after you accomplish that hour, try to do it for a longer period. Try to make it, I woke up, I meditated, I had a nice meditation. You ever come out of your meditation and like instantly get into the business of the day? And it's like, oh, so overwhelming. Say, okay, I meditated, I tuned into God, I feel God's presence, and now from, say it's 8 o'clock until noon, I'm going on a worry fast. I'm not going to worry. When a worry pops into my mind, I'm just going to let it go. And increase until the worries just melt away, because they know they don't have that post of ego to latch onto. That's really what the worries are going after, is the little self. No, no, you can't do that. No, 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 he shouldn't do that. No, 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 no. So, just close with one more final suggestion, is that in our meditations, we focus more on the peace of meditation, more on the qualities of the divine. The techniques are given to us to get us to the place of peace, to the place of joy. So when you feel a little glimmer of peace, hold on to the glimmer of peace, expand it to fill your whole being. That is the purpose of our meditation. Not that we got our Kriyas done, or not that we got in the Om technique and we did this many minutes of Hong Saw, or whatever it may be. Our purpose of meditating, it sounds obvious, but we have to remind ourselves, it's to feel God's peace. It's to feel joy. It's to become one with that joy and to share the joy with everyone. God bless you.